through. Here's Jerry Jones with more on the hire.
Now, I get my proverbial ass kicked over needing people in my comfort zone. Without this thing being about me in any way, if you don't think I can't operate out of my comfort zone, you're so wrong. It's unbelievable. This is as big a risk as you could take. As big a risk as you could take. No head coaching experience. Yes, to some, and it might be couched as a less than glamorous hire. What I would say to you is I got here taking shots and not shoddy shots. I got here taking shots.
Not shoddy. Not shoddy.
He couldn't wait to get that line
Couldn't wait to get that. Yeah, he set
like,
that one up.
I'm going to say shots, then I'm going to hit him with the shoddy. They're going to be like, ooh-wee.
What just happened?
The guy's sitting right there.
Beside him.
This is a less than glamorous hire, Brian. Any thoughts?
It's a risk. Big risk. Biggest risk I've ever taken since I hit oil. Biggest risk. You don't think I take risk? Man. I'm just going to tell y'all this right now. You know I'm social media. I am a genius at it. I spent 8 minutes watching my phone, watching that press conference, and I could not turn away because it was the train wreck that everybody came. You can't turn your. When I saw the one-handed air quote by Stephen when he talked about
that's coming
the drought, I was like, they have lost. So they've lost all.
Let's just play it. Let's play it since you mentioned it, and then we'll just go all in on it.
It's unbelievable.
So this is what I meant when I said, wait till you're not going to believe what they wouldn't say. So Stephen Jones addressed how long it has been, which is 29 seasons, that the Cowboys haven't even been in the NFC Championship game, and this is how he said it.
You always have to evaluate, where it didn't go right last year, and obviously we're also evaluating where it didn't go right. In terms of, this drought that people say we're in terms of a championship game or a Super Bowl.
So it only took 40 years in biblical times to find the promised land. 40. We would run in a circle in the desert 40 years. We're at 30.
So here's
the drought.
Like, if I had these people's money, I would not care about anything anybody had to say about me and the way I operate my business. Like, I just wouldn't pay attention. But they're clearly paying some attention to it, right?
They are.
Because that's what this means, right? Like, people say drought. It's probably actually a lot worse than a drought. It's a famine, or it's an ice age, more like a drought. But what Jerry's talking about, like, I get my proverbial ass kicked. Like, he's saying, like, this is what people say about me to criticize me. My response is, who cares? Like, if you really want it to be, this is my team, and I'm going to run it the way I want to, then sort of, say it with your chest, right? I mean, like, actually, like, believe in it and stand by it.
I think the success and financial security that he has is not the same as being celebrated. And I think that's what it comes down to, is he wants to convince us that he is the Jerry Jones that won 3 Super Bowls back in the day, and he's the Jerry Jones that can build this team. And they've been good. So while we do have fun with the way that he's been behaving recently, like, the teams haven't been awful. Like, there are some really terrible organizations in this sport and in other sports. The problem is the decisions that he makes they seem to make less and less sense as we go along. Because if you wanted to keep this staff, then keep the staff together and pay the coach that you have. Why would you try to keep this staff together with the offensive coordinator and then let the head coach walk away?
And they've also lost other staffers, right? The special teams coach left. So I think they were caught off guard. I think they thought they were going to get a deal done with Mike McCarthy. And at the end of the day, he didn't like the deal on the table and he left. So I think they were caught flat-footed. They hit this process a week in. They generally handle it a lot differently than other teams do anyway. Look, if you break it all the way down, like, Brian Schottenheimer is a first-time head coach. So is Ben Johnson. So is Aaron Glenn. So is Liam Cohen. We don't know. Brian Schottenheimer might be better than all 3 of those guys. We don't know that. It just feels very odd and haphazard the way they're doing it.
So who else was once a first-time head coach? Bill Belichick and Andy Reid, and everybody has to start somewhere. I feel bad for Brian Schottenheimer, a man who was quite literally born into do this. He's Marty's son and all the rest of that. And all of the questioning / vitriol is going to sound to him as though it's aimed at him, when I think really none of it is. There's no way of knowing whether he's going to be the greatest coach of all time, the worst coach of all time, or somewhere in between where most people are. What it is, however, unquestionably, is another example of Jerry doing what he has continued to do, which is put someone in that position who did not have other options, who does not in any way have the footing upon which to stand to say, no, we're going to do it a different way. He continues to be the person running the show. And that is, he tripled down on it with this move at a time later in his life where some of us thought, with the drought that they've been going through and how badly things went last year, that maybe this would be the time that he would step back with a little bit of self-analysis and say, you know what? Maybe I need to try something different. Maybe over the course of 29 years, it has been demonstrated that this hasn't worked the way I wanted to. Let me try something a little different. I don't know what that would have been, but it wouldn't have been this. And that, I think, is what people are reacting to.
You're 100% correct. And I think what Neek said probably lends to this, right, is you haven't been so bad. You've been good enough, right, to compete. McCarthy, go 12-5 3 years in a row. You win a playoff game. You get beat by Green Bay the year before. Now your quarterback gets hurt and the season kind of falls. But the reality of it is what he did to get himself in that position for this season all could have been laid at the feet of Jerry Jones, because he didn't do the things he needed to do to get their roster right to go be successful. And I think if you're Schottenheimer, who I actually like, I think he's a great football coach. I wish him the best, right? Like all these guys. But at the end of the day, how do you define success? That's a really difficult question when you're in Dallas. And I think it's unique because you might go 12-5, but you don't win the playoffs, you still have a job. You're linked with Dak Prescott. All the major pieces and parts are already kind of there. It's how do you define success for the Dallas Cowboys in a league now where you probably have the third best quarterback, right? Like as you're looking at the league, the way it's stacking up, it becomes more and more difficult. I'm just not sure how you figure it out.
Jerry Jones is always hiring coaches who don't really have other options. It's true, but he just had a coach walk away who doesn't have other options, who doesn't want to be there. So that speaks to, and I know Mike McCarthy hasn't put words to this, but I assumed that he was going to get paid just as much as he was getting paid before to come back and coach there. And in that ballpark. So for him to not want to come back, and it's not that he's leaving to go to another job, it speaks to, as much as I hear positive things said about working for Jerry Jones, and I think most of us do, people like working there. It does say something that this coach is like, nah, I'm going to go do no job rather than come back and do this job. And then they hire Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah, and just one final word of irony. I brought this up Sunday on Countdown. When Brian's father, Marty, whom we loved, worked here at ESPN. I'm not sure, he worked at ESPN in between jobs, as most coaches do. And I hosted a show with him one time. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, he was so thorough and just terrific. Everybody loved Marty Schottenheimer. But the one thing I'll never forget he said to me, and I've quoted it a million times, is, if you're the coach of a football team and your players are looking over your shoulder at anyone, you have no chance to succeed. That was Marty saying that. Now, here's his son taking this job with the definition of the person looking over. There has never been anyone who looked over a coach's shoulder